Good evening, and welcome to W.R. Frady's Friday Night Frights. I'm your host, W.R. Frady, and I'd like to invite you back to that shadowy world of ghost stories, strange tales, and all manner of spooky fun for the Halloween season, the campfire, or just whenever the spirit moves you. So as you know, this weekend begins autumn officially. And before we get things started, I would like to give a tribute to this magical time of the year and all the beauty and eeriness that comes with it. So without further ado, let's begin. There's something enchanting about the autumn of the year. When the windswept hillsides and mountains are ablaze in autumn splendor, showcasing rich, vibrant hues of reds, oranges, and golds. And the wind snatches bits of limbs and leaves that swirl into dust devils that dance in the revelry of the coming frosts. The twilight casts the land in burnished golden hues of antiquity, and night creeps in on cat's paws to engross the land in its rich, deep, swollen embrace. There's a magnificence to the scent of that musky smoke of fireplaces being started up for the first times of the season, with scents of not only mold and mildew from the outlying forests, but little hints of ginger and pumpkin and apple that highlight the air itself. When the mosses start turning their various hues, and dew seems to creep in, whispering of coming frosts and cold on the air. The birds begin to gather and start making their way to warmer lands. And the smell of baking goods and pastries and treats for the coming festivities are ripe and abundant. There's something memorial about autumn festivities and fairs and parades and ghost stories and bonfires in the night which people gather and enjoy themselves. And there's a subtle beauty to it all. As we celebrate the aging and the venerable time of the year, the harvest, when we bring everything home. Yeah, there's something magical, there's something special about the autumn. Something wondrous and grand. And not only does it bring out this rich and just vibrant celebration of life, especially life as it's nearing its very end, there is a darkness that comes. When shadows creep across the land and the sun swiftly dives behind the western horizon, and shadows reach out to strangle the remaining summer's heat from the land, and the wind ushers the remaining heat of the summer out. There's an icy, cold whisper of doom on the air, knowing that death's icy touch will soon engross the land. It's a time when fouler things come out and creep, when ghost stories, when families and traditions speak of the older older generations that come back from beyond to wander the land and visit their homes, to visit their kin, and the dead stalk this countryside. When myth and superstition become one with reality. And for those who linger too long in lost, forgotten lands, soon realize that the breathtaking beauty of day soon takes on a whole new meaning of breathtaking long after dark, when unwhispered fears of childhood memories come back to haunt. Yes, welcome back, autumn. Oh, beautiful colors of death and life, and the time when we celebrate those things which have come and gone. Thank you for coming back once again. And I hope you have a happy, wonderful autumn season. May your harvests be bountiful and your fires be bright. And may your ghost stories be ever creepy and most fun of all. And without further ado, we will go to our first tale. Tonight's ghost stories take us to things we're all familiar with. We've all had things we've wanted to say, places we'd want to go, things we want to experience. A true love, a dance. Maybe it's a trip you've always wanted to go on. It's things that you relate with on an everyday basis. And sometimes the passion of those things carry on long beyond the grave. Tonight's first story takes us to a convenience store where a young couple who have hit it off from the very beginning build a bond that could clearly be more. Yet, when the feelings finally do come out, well, that's the real story. I like to call this story, Where Have You Been? Caleb and Lauren had hit it off from the very beginning, from the very first day they met at the local convenience store where Caleb frequented. It was like the two just clicked from the very get-go, and they became fast friends, and just, it was clear also that there was more between them. They would laugh, they would cut up, they would carry on, and even during Lauren's lunch period, or when they had a chance, they would go even just to the park, just right nearby to that convenience store, where they would spend time together, laugh, pick fun at each other, and it was clear that the two really cared for one another. However, anytime the idea or the notion of taking that next step came up, one or the other would always deflect or change the subject, or it just never, it was almost as though they just weren't sure about that next step. And so it went on like this. Started off days, then weeks, then months. Well over a year had passed that they had carried on this relationship, friendship. They weren't quite friends, they weren't quite lovers, but it was just somewhere in between. Until one day, Caleb no longer showed up at the store, which already in itself was unusual, but when Lauren didn't see him come in, she thought nothing of it. Things do come up, and it wasn't anything. But one day became 2, 2 days became 3, days became 1 week, 2 weeks, and as the second week progressed, Lauren began to wonder, did I do something? Did I say something that made him go away? I mean, that made him leave? And she didn't understand. Well, about 3 weeks in, as Lauren was closing up, Caleb come into the store for the first time. And Lauren was ecstatic. She was excited to see him, and he was excited to see her. And the two laughed, and they cut up as always. And just as Caleb was getting his stuff, and he looked at her and said, "Hey, you mind if we hang out at the park after you're done?" And, not having seen him in a couple of weeks, Lauren was ecstatic. She was, yeah, sure. So, as soon as the store was closed up and everything was good, she and Caleb went over to the park where they had always went when she was on lunch, and they began talking and laughing and carrying on as they always had. And they talked TV shows and games and books and just the typical stuff they always talk about. But then Lauren's curiosity just got the better of her, and she's like, "Where have you been? I was afraid I had done something or said something that had made you go away or pushed you away. I didn't know." Chad just looked down, and he just looked up at her and was like, No, Lauren, there was nothing you've done or said that would have pushed me away or anything like that. She said, in fact, and his demeanor started to change a little bit. He said, in fact, I had to go away for a while. And he got kind of a distant look in his eye, and he's like, which is why I'm here. I'm going to have to go away again. And Lauren kind of looked puzzled, and he's like, Lauren, is there something I can tell you? And Lauren kind of looked puzzled, and she kind of had a sinking feeling in her stomach, but she was wondering, was Caleb in some sort of trouble, or this wasn't like him? Of course, you can tell me anything, he says. Lauren, I've been deeply in love with you for the last year, and I've just been afraid to say it. And I just wanted you to know this before I have to go away. And so Lauren was just moved. She was taken aback, because she had been feeling the same way, and she wanted to express this to him as well. And so she did. And when they did, they sat there and they collapsed into one another's arms and was holding each other. And at first, when she felt his arms, he was extremely cold for some reason, but then it was cold outside too, so maybe, that was why he was. But she sat there, and they held one another, and they talked a little bit longer. And then before long, the bell in the center of town chimed out the hour. And Caleb snapped up, and he looked. He's like, "Oh no, I've got to get going. I'm sorry, I've got to get going." He goes, "Well, I'll see you tomorrow." I said, I won't be here. I'm not going to be able to be here, and I got to go." And he looked at her, and he squeezed her one last time, and then and he left. And Lauren just not knowing how to take and what just went on, looked down, and even though he had already left, his phone was right there on the seat beside her. He had left his phone. And by the time she looked up to find him, he was already gone, out of sight. So she opened up his phone, thankful that he didn't have something to have to, no password or anything, just opened it up. And she went to his contacts and found his home number. And so, let's see. And so, she found his home number and dialed it. And the phone rang and rang. And then after a few minutes, an elderly woman's voice, not elderly, but a little older woman, middle-aged woman's voice came over the phone. Hello? Yeah, is this Caleb's mom? Yes, who is this? And how'd you get this phone? Oh, I'm Lauren, and I work at the convenience store, she said. I just wanted to call because he says, well, and he says, okay, Lauren, I've heard of you. Caleb's mentioned you before. And he's like, yeah, well, what are you doing with Caleb's phone? She goes, well, that's what I was calling about. I was just here with Caleb, and we were talking, and he when he left in such a hurry that he forgot his phone. And she's like, are you playing some kind of joke on me? And Lauren was taken aback. She goes, no, ma'am, I'm not playing any sort of joke. Why would I do that? And what do you mean? She goes, you couldn't have been talking to Caleb. He's like, but he was just here 5 minutes ago. I was just talking to him. That's why I'm on his phone. She goes, so is there any way we can get this back to him? She goes, Lauren, I know that Caleb has always had feelings for you. But here's something I don't know how to tell you this. But Caleb died 3 weeks ago in a car wreck when outside of town. And Lauren just stopped. Our next story takes us away from the convenience store and the small neighborhood park where a young couple learns of their feelings for one another in the most tragic way. And now goes to another town where a young man is looking forward to his high school autumn formal and a night of fun, friends, and dancing. I call this autumn formal, or the autumn formal. You see, Jake had been looking forward to the autumn formal for the last month since it was first posted on the bulletin board. The autumn formal. It was the event of the autumn next to homecoming and the homecoming dance. The autumn formal was just, it was like the school Halloween party without the costumes. And he could not wait to revel in the festivities and friends and dancing and music. And so during that time he'd gotten himself some new clothes, he'd gotten some new cologne and cleaned up his truck and everything. And Jake was just ready to go in and have a great time. And that was what Jake did. Within the first little while of being there, he met up with some of his buddies. And of course they had brought their dates. So, that wasn't going to be someone he could be with all the time because they were off dancing and enjoying their time together. So Jake would go enjoy some of the spiced apple cider, the hors d'oeuvres, and other amenities. And before long, he noticed that not only was he on, standing back and kind of watching things from the outside, but he noticed that there was another girl just across from him who also kind of looked like she felt out of place and was watching the dancing and the fellowship and camaraderie of the autumn formal. So Jacob took it upon himself. He's like, you know what? It's now or never. I'm going. He got up and he went over, and he introduced himself, and she introduced herself as Kelly, and the two kicked up and began talking immediately, right away. I mean, they just clicked, and before long they were laughing and talking, and so Jake asked her to dance, and dance they did. They went out and they enjoyed the night, dancing, laughing, carrying on, and having a blast. And so, as the dance went on, they decided to take a break from dancing, and they went out to Jake's truck and sat back, and they began talking, telling stories, and things that went on, and just laughing and cutting up back and forth. And then they went back in and danced a little more. So the night passed on, and the dance finally came to an end. And Jake asked, "Do you have a way home? If you'd like, I could take you." And of course, Kelly was like, "Sure, I walked here, so I would love to have you take me home if it's not too much trouble for you." So Jacob was like, No, I'd be more than happy to take you home." So he took Kelly back out to his truck, and like any gentleman, he went over and opened the door and lended his hand to help her up into the truck. And as he shut the door and got into the truck himself, before long they were on their way. And as she showed him where he needed to go, they kept on talking and laughing and just getting to know one another. And Kelly was feeling kind of cold, so he took off his jacket and he wrapped it around her and let her take that to herself. Well, as they come up on Shadows Road, Kelly said, just drop me off right here at the end of Shadows Road, and I can walk because my house is just right there." And she pointed to this one house just down the road that had a single porch light and a light on that was upstairs. He said, she goes, "That's my road, that's my house. I'll just walk from here." He said, "Are you sure you're going to be okay?" He goes, Yeah. He's like, "All right, well, you just keep my jacket, and I'll come pick it up later. And, if you'd like to see me, I'll just see them maybe this weekend or tomorrow whenever you're ready." And she goes, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'd love to see you again. I had so much fun." And so she got out of the truck and pulled the jacket around her and went on down the road. And as she got out of sight, Jake pulled the truck on and started off home. Well, he got all the way up to where he was getting ready to turn into his drive, and when he looked over and saw that there was a purse sitting in his passenger seat, and he was like, "Oh no, Kelly forgot her purse." So he turned the truck around and went right back to Shadows Road. He's like, he started driving down Shadows Road to see if maybe she was still walking or see if she was outside. But when he didn't see her, he drove right down to the house she had pointed out with that lone porch light and that light on upstairs. And he went up and knocked on the door. And at first nobody answered, so he knocked again. And the light come on, and a door, and a middle-aged woman kind of opened the door and looked and says, "Hello, can I help you?" He was like, "Yeah, I was here. I was looking for Kelly. She said she lived here. I had just dropped her off from the autumn formal, but she forgot her purse in my truck. And she's like, you must be thinking of a different Kelly. There's no Kelly that lives here. He said, no, I can assure you that it's got to be the Kelly I'm thinking of, because she pointed and said that she lived in this house right before I dropped her off. And she's like, he goes, well, let me see the purse. And he pulled it up and handed it to her. And she goes, the lady's face just went like white as the blood just left her face. She was like, oh my gosh. And he's like, what's wrong? Is there something wrong? She's like, do you have a minute? So she invited him in. She goes, is this who you dropped off? And she pointed to a picture up on the mantle. And sure enough, it was not only was it the same girl, she was wearing the same dress. She says, yeah, that's Kelly. She's like, that Kelly's my daughter. And yeah, she don't live here anymore. She goes, but she had to. I was just dropped her off maybe 10 minutes ago. She's like, matter of fact, she was wearing I had left her, I'd give her my jacket because she was cold. And so her mom said, all right, we need to do something. So she goes, you've got your truck on. We need to go to the cemetery. I got to show you something. She goes, what do you mean? She says, my daughter Kelly died 5 years ago walking to the autumn formal at the high school. And he's like, it can't be, because I was just dancing with her all night. She says, come on, let me show you. So they went to the graveyard and into the mausoleum. And there was on the door of the mausoleum, he saw the picture of where she had died alongside with the news clipping showing. And did he tell him what happened? So they opened up the mausoleum door, and inside was Kelly, and she was still wearing Jake's jacket. And so that concludes our stories for this week. From the convenience store and a small neighborhood park where a young couple tragically learn of one another's feelings for one another, and an autumn formal where a young woman just wanted to live the memories she never got to make. Not all ghost stories have to be secret murders, bloody bones. Some of them are just tragic tales of things that were never said or finished. So, if you have loved ones, if you have memories that you want to make, then be sure you fulfill them so that your ghost story won't appear on somebody else's tales. Anyway, this is W.R. Frady saying good night, sweet dreams, and I hope to see you next week on W.R. Frady's Friday Night Frights.